This is Faisal Qureshi.
This is Umar Sheikh.
And this is Tanya Khan. Welcome back to Loose Ends.
And here we have with us Saira Kamar, who's an architect, and Mariam Said, who works with a foreign bank.
Today we're going to discuss what is it like to be a woman in Pakistan. Before coming here, I was doing some reading on the internet and I came across this news item at New Zealand Fairfax Limited. It's about this gentleman called Mr. Tahir Mirza Hussain, who's been in our legal system for 20 years, and finally today he's been sentenced to death.
He's the British gentleman, right?
Yes, he's the British gentleman who made an unfortunate trip to Pakistan, and he was just here on holiday, and apparently a taxi driver pulled over, took out a gun at him and tried to take advantage. And during the struggle...
When you say take advantage?
I think he wanted to steal his money and use him for some pleasure, I reckon. During the tussle and fight, the gun went off and the taxi driver died. This young boy went to the police on his own and reported the case, but he was arrested immediately for murder. This case went on in April 1994. His sentence was reduced to life in prison, and then in May 1996, the High Court acquitted Mr. Hussain of all charges. I'm reading this from the report in the New Zealand Fairfax.
I've just got a question.
Yeah.
What does this have to do with women?
Well, we'll get to that in a second, Omar. But a week later, well, here it is. But a week later, while he was awaiting release, the case was referred to a Sharia court.
All right.
On the basis that the crime was charged with armed robbery, which came under the jurisdiction of the Sharia law.
Define the Sharia law.
Sharia law was introduced in 1979. And one of the controversial elements of this law is the Hudud ordinance, which we've all heard about over and over again.
Okay, I've heard about it, but define it again.
Hudud ordinance covers adultery, rape and theft, and requires 4 male witnesses for rape allegation to be successfully prosecuted. This is the most disputed part of it. However,
4 male witnesses for rape allegation?
There's a lot of agencies right now who are actually putting it through a lot of scrutiny through the Hudud law and trying to implement a lot of changes to it because it's completely unfair and irrational.
In 1995, the repeal of Hudud law was pushed by the present government, but according to some human rights monitors, 80% of all adultery-related Hudud cases are filed without any supporting evidence.
80% of them?
Yes. The way that works is you can report a case, you get arrested, by the time you produce evidence, that takes time, the legal system, you have to produce...
Yeah, because someone's going to be sort of waiting for you to get raped and just be a witness.
Yes, and it's just not casual witness, it's witness of the actual act.
Right, but here's the other thing, and if one of the witnesses is not a Muslim, then that's disregarded. That witness is completely disregarded. Yeah.
Yes, that comes under the Shahadat law.
Okay, so the Hudud law has a Shahadat law which...
Well, the Shahadat law is actually part of most... I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really say this with authority, but this, in my understanding, the Shahadat law controls who can give witness in most of our legal system, but I'm really not an expert on this.
Actually, I find it really interesting that the Hudud ordinance has been applied to man.
Yeah, that was
what caught my attention, because
Hudud ordinance
I think
not.
generally
it's the Sharia law which has Hudud ordinance under it, and Hudud ordinance which covers adultery, rape and theft.
So it could be.
But you know, when you said that the taxi driver tried to take advantage of the man, you know.
But that is not where the Hudud was invoked. The Hudud was invoked because they charged him with armed robbery. They didn't get him.
Okay, they got him.
They couldn't get him in murder because murder falls under the jurisdiction of the court, the regular court, and the regular court acquits him in, in April 1994, his sentence is reduced to life, and then in May 1996, the High Court acquits Mr. Hussain of all charges.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I still haven't had anything to do with women yet.
Yeah. What is this?
So the Hudud is one of the instruments used against the women. Such laws exist, and those are just some of the instruments used for, that's where you can't scream rape, you can't scream abuse, you can't scream anything. Because the moment you do that, first you come to jail, and we'll book you, and then we'll investigate. And thus, the society has predominantly become used to that. However, the rest of the world has gone through that phase. The woman has been treated poorly in the West as well. However, in their workplace and their political correct environment, they have now come to break away from that.
One question. Going back to what you said earlier, where you said the Hudud ordinance, well, you implied that it worked against women.
Yeah.
I beg to differ because I'm not sure if I'm not that acquainted with the Hudud law, but is it the law that is incorrect or the system that applies the law?
Well, I think a lot of the things in the Hudud ordinance are also based on our personal culture and environment. So it's not entirely religious. If you take it down to what religious says and the priority religion gives to women and the rights it gives to women, there's not much of that in the Hudud ordinance. It's mostly down to our cultural preferences. So then it's a male-dominant law.
Are you saying that it's how we interpret the law?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. That then
how we interpret the religion.
So how we use the law.
Yeah.
So it's not the religion or it's not the law. It's
not at all. There are instruments available which can be used against the women. They can be used against men as well, but they're more usable against women, one. And secondly, because we are a male-dominated society, we do get away. When I say we, I don't mean Umar and myself. We're decent, very law-abiding citizens here. Yes, Umar took a look the other way. But generally speaking, the system is built such that the man gets away with just about anything, and the woman does not. Even in the case of most of the Hudud cases which have happened in the past 20 odd years, the woman gets into trouble. Man does not get into so much trouble. That's now, please.
Just on that, when you say it's a male-dominated society, statistically it's a female-dominated society because 56% of our population is women. When you say
but unfortunately, they're not in professional positions.
No, I mean
the
that's
female
what I'm saying.
workforce is much smaller.
The government wants to have a minimum of 5% female population in the work field. However, even that is not fulfilled.
But when you say that it's a male-dominated society, firstly, there are more women than men. Secondly, what makes a society? Mothers, fathers, parents, friends, and we're all playing a role in that, right? Whether we are bosses at a workplace or not is regardless. How do you bring up your child? What do you tell your son? If you have a son and a daughter, do you give some benefits to your son and not to your daughter?
Well, a common occurrence in a typical Pakistani household is बेटा पैदा होता है तो मिठाइयाँ जाती हैं, बेटी पैदा होती है तो उसको बचपन से ही शुरू कर दे कि नहीं तुम पराई हो. You're gonna go.
My own sister had her second daughter, first daughter, second, and I'm at the hospital, it's a Jinnah hospital, and this nurse walks up to me and says, Mubarak ho, and you go, चलने कोई ना अल्लाह बेहतर करेगा. And I'm like, खैरियत है क्या हुआ? You go, बेटी हुई है. I'm like, that's superb. Problem क्या? कहती नहीं देखें जाने होता है ये तो चलता है जिंदगी में अल्लाह बेहतर करे.
That's a classic case of
भाई बेटी हुई है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह खैरियत से.
Discrimination against women by women, and I feel that in our society women are discriminated mostly by women.
One more thing, when we say it's a male-dominated society, it's not a war of the numbers.
No, I agree.
When we say male-dominated society, what we're referring to is you could have 500 women and 5 men. 500 women could stand there and say, ये जो 5 आदमी हैं, ये आवारा हैं, लफंगे हैं, बुरे हैं, आदमी कहेंगे, अरे बदनाम हुए तो क्या नाम ना हो, मर्द हैं, भाई क्या हुआ? और वो 5 आदमी, उनमें 500 औरतों के भाई ये सब आवारा हैं, बुरी औरतें हैं, तो उनको संसार कर दिया जाएगा.